Thank you. Welcome to the Deschutes County Board of Commissioners meeting. Conversations in the room here. We're going to get a meeting started. So welcome to the Deschutes County Board of Commissioners meeting, 9 a.m. Wednesday, April 6, 2022. First item is Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So Commissioner Dare, did she end up going to Salem? I think that's what she's doing, Connect Oregon programs, I think. So she's not with us today. It's the two of us, which is a quorum of the board, and we can still do the people's business. At this time, citizen input. We do have a couple emails, 3 in opposition of our development of Worrell Park, which is the park outside of our building here. These are emails to us. One of my thoughts is, on this subject, I don't know if we've talked about it recently, is just having possibly a little open house about what we're thinking and what it is. Because what I've seen with some of these emails is people, are providing a pretty strong response, but I have a hunch that, they haven't seen it or been there maybe ever, maybe in many years. So just an idea in passing here, but this is citizen input. Another one is on transparency to Commissioner Dare in response to some media coverage recently. With those items, is there anybody and any other topics for public testimony today? You could have 3 minutes. Seeing none, is there anybody online? Okay. So at this time, consent agenda. There's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 items on the consent agenda, 4 sets of minutes.
We're pulling item 8.
So item 8, we did receive an email from one of the board members. So I called the person, this is a road district, and there's 2 people on the board, and this would have been the 3rd appointment. And one of the people said, hey, I'm not sure I want to do this. So now we have a split decision on their 2-person governing board. So I'd like to call the other person and just understand what they're going to happen there. So I did do a little bit of homework on that. So I do support pulling that item for today. So that's item 8 for Newberry Estates Special Road District.
I'll move approval of the consent agenda except for item 8.
And I will second it. Any other discussion? Couple items on here. So drainage aggregate for cell 9 construction of not landfill. So that's utilizing the rock that's in that shelf and coming up with an aggregate product at our landfill, which is pretty exciting. And then also item 5, Noxious Weed Advisory Board. Want to thank thanks some folks for serving and then reappointing the next person. But noxious weeds, it's something that on top of all the other things we do, keeping an eye on weeds that are invasive in our climate and environment also. So I want to thank the folks that are involved on that committee. So with that, calling for the vote, Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
And Chair votes yes. Vice Chair. So at this time, item number 13, first reading of ordinance, regarding Dave Swisher plan amendment and zone change.
Morning, Commissioners. For the record, Kyle Collins, Associate Planner. As Vice Chair DeBone just pointed out, I'm here for a first reading by title only of 2 ordinances. This is associated with Dave Swisher's comprehensive plan amendment and zone change application. The board deliberated on this matter back on March 16th. Held a resolution to uphold the hearings officer's decision in this matter, which was an approval of the request. Just to give a very brief summary here, again, this is for 2 40-acre properties, approximately 1.5 miles east of Bend. This would change the underlying comprehensive plan's designation from agricultural to rural residential, and a corresponding zone change from exclusive farm use to multiple use agricultural. And with that, I can open it up to any questions that you might have.
So yeah, public hearing on the matter and deliberations in support of this. So we're just kind of landing this for a first reading today.
Correct.
And there's 2 different items, 2 ordinances. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve first reading of ordinance number 2022-003 and ordinance 2022-004. Is this by title only?
Title only?
Title only.
By title only, okay, so, and I will second that. Any other discussion? Seeing none, calling for the vote, Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
and chair votes yes. So I think I'm in that same situation of I've got the first.
So I actually printed out
Oh, you got them here separate for me.
separate for you.
Just got to figure out what page the second one is. Okay, so first reading, ordinance number 2022-003, an ordinance amending Deschutes County Code Title 23, the Deschutes County Comprehensive Plan to change comprehensive plan map designation for certain property from agriculture to rural residential exception area and prescribing an effective date 90 days after the date of adoption. That was ordinance 2022-003, and thank you for putting them together. Ordinance number 2022-004, an ordinance amending Deschutes County Code Title 18, the Deschutes County zoning map, to change the zone designation for certain property from exclusive farm use to multiple use agriculture and prescribing an effective date on the 90th day after the date of adoption. Second reading will be 2 weeks from now.
2 weeks from today. Yep.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much,
I
Commissioner.
mean, so now that that hearing and that vote is over, I mean, I would also just like to say that we have seen some of the opponents of this change try to defend the agricultural potential of this property, and just at the very high level, I just want to say that I think it's really unfortunate that we have undeveloped lands that have significant public value, but the state land use planning system doesn't necessarily recognize the value of those undeveloped lands. And so what we see is people trying to shoehorn properties into an agricultural framework, and just at the very highest level, I'd like to express my interest in helping the state reconsider the land use planning system so that we can actually have categories and and recognize the value of certain kinds of open spaces and undeveloped properties for habitat, scenic values, and other purposes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll just, Chair, if I can just offer, previously in working in the Community Development Department, Peter Gutowski and our Community Development Director now have had the similar discussions that the statewide planning program was initially created with 14 statewide planning goals, and then additional goals added, such as the Willamette River Greenway, the coastal goals, and one of the topics we've talked about that hasn't resonated was, is there a goal pertaining to the high desert and its unique resources and its unique values, but that hasn't generated. There have been other goal 20 topics to recognize other special features, so, but that hasn't gained traction, but we do recognize the other values that our high desert landscape does provide.
Thank you.
Well, there's a flip side argument to that whole thing, too. These are already privately owned parcels. They're not farmed for agriculture. I understand open space requests, but we're 79% publicly owned in a 3,055 square mile county. So it's nice to be able to say, oh, we'd like to have these open spaces in undisturbed areas. But I think 79% of our county is already that way. It's possibly better for wildlife with a little bit of improvements, green area, possible standing water, referring to somebody's just bird fountain even, instead of just the dry sage area. And then juniper removal can be good for water at the groundwater level too. So there's balances on that whole concept.
Yeah, juniper removal doesn't necessarily need to be prohibited in land that is not available for higher density residential development. So,
Well, these would be small MUA 10 acre parcels, maximum density. I mean, it's pretty exciting, and that's a lifestyle that people really look for, especially, as I say, with high-speed internet opportunities in these areas that are generally closer located to other urban areas. I mean, this is a wonderful lifestyle for a subset of people, and it's not high density, it's low density.
Yeah, and our county does provide thousands of rural residential living opportunities for people. There will always be more demand than there is supply, and just because there's demand doesn't mean that we need to do everything in our power to match the supply to that.
Well, and this is a 50-year path, a very carefully crafted land use system that just happened to open up this path. You know, the state legislative, or the state land board did the DSL rezone like this at the edge of Bend. So, I mean, that was kind of the path opening up on this also. So, I mean, yeah, it's an interesting discussion, I know.
This property is not on the edge of Bend, which is, I think is a very appropriate place to consider these kinds of reclassifications and rezonings.
Right on. Good discussion. Okay, so I'd like to just make a note for minutes, if my fellow commissioner supports. I did have a note here, so March 7th minutes, it said I did attend a Shepherd's House open house. I just wanted to add the words "in Redmond," because that was the idea, that they're opening a new facility, and it just says Shepherd's House. So, yeah, so we'll have Sharon just add the words "in Redmond" to that note of other items from our minutes on March 7th. Our agenda says we'll take a recess and then come back for other items. I don't think that's our intention.
No.
Let's go
but
to other items.
We do have executive session.
Yep, yeah, we'll get right to that. I'm just joking around here. Any other items?
Nothing to report since Monday.
Anything else from Nick or anybody? So one item for me is I did do interviews on Monday morning and yesterday afternoon for the Solid Waste Advisory Committee with Chad Santola. So it was the two of us. There'll be 4 recommended names, and I won't mention them today. But if you want to, I'm sure Nick can share that status of what Chad and I did to the other 2 commissioners, and then it would be proposed to be, either on a consent agenda next week or other interviews, whatever we want to do. So there's just the status of those 4 interviews from the last couple days. And that's the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, citizens at large positions at large, 4 of them. Okay, is there anything else for the general meeting? Seeing none, we will go to executive session, so we won't